What's up everybody, today I'm back with another brand new Overwatch Hero concept, this time for the toxic Talon chemist, VOX. Equipped with hazardous chemicals and experimental weaponry, he's an off-tank who excels at area denial and breaking up tight enemy team comps. This is Master Ian Gamer, and let's get into it. As I'm sure many of you have recognized, the hero in today's concept video actually comes from some of the old Overwatch artwork, which released way back before the game even launched. Amongst the various foreign and familiar faces, this guy in particular always stuck out to me due to his hazmat suit and the unique possibilities which might be associated with such a character as this. While there's evidence from the devs themselves that this character was actually a very early version of Ana, I still think that there's some great potential for a hazmat hero in Overwatch, hence why I've designed an entire kit and abilities around this idea. First off though, I want to real briefly cover the backstory I wrote to explain how I imagine him fitting into the Overwatch universe. Vox Mitchell had been a world-renowned chemist for many years before finally receiving his invitation to Oasis. He thought that Minister of Toxicology would at long last be an adequate position for someone of his grandeur, but soon found that his expectations were poorly met. While his fellow ministers were all truly exceptional scientists on par with his own caliber, he was disappointed by their misdirected ambitions. While Vox sought to impact the world with his work, many of these so-called great minds who now surrounded him cared only for the act of science itself and little for what came of it in the end. Nothing was more telling of this than the abomination of human engineering which towered above their city. Eternally under construction with no plans of ever being finished, his associates regarded it as some kind of marvel, but Vox himself saw it as an aimless waste. He wanted his science to actually achieve something. There was one colleague of his whom he could tolerate, however, the Minister of Genetics, Moira O'Dearin. While she undeniably reveled in the art of science, Moira shared Vox's ambition to produce impactful results. Thanks to the overlap of their respective fields, the two often worked side by side, and it was only a matter of time before Vox learned of her other, more obscure associates. Ones who did not partake in science per se, but nevertheless were tangibly changing the world. Demanding an audience with them, Vox was pleased by their very real ambitions. He proposed to collaborate in the interest of changing the world, and after presenting to them his skill set's potential, won over their favor. While this new partnership offered enough monetary compensation for Vox to comfortably resign from his position at Oasis, he instead chose to stay and continue working among the other ministers which he so heavily despised. He wanted to watch firsthand when his work toppled their delusions of science. He wanted to see their faces when his efforts changed the world. Getting into his hero kit now, Vox is a tank hero with 350 health and 50 armor, thus giving him a total of 400 HP. His body proportions are akin to Torbjorn in that he has an overall bulky and squat design, but stands roughly 3/4 the height of Roadhog. This rounds out his body design by making him the shortest of all the tank heroes, which is a necessary aspect given his abilities and relatively low health pool. Real quick before we get onto those abilities, however, I just wanted to give a quick reminder that if you enjoy this video or any of the other hero concepts I've done before, then be sure to hit that like button and share it with your friends, as that helps a ton with me being able to continue working on this kind of content. And now let's get to the rest of his kit. First up is his main weapon, the Chemical Coagulator. A somewhat strange device of his own design, it condenses substances from his suit's chemical tanks into semi-solid projectiles which can be fired in various forms. The primary fire option lobs a toxic mass over medium range in an arc, which explodes upon impact to deal AoE damage. This attack is very similar to Zarya's alternate fire, but with a couple noteworthy differences. First off, it doesn't deal any knockback damage and cannot deal damage to Vox himself. Second, it deals damage in successive ticks, just like Ana's biotic rifle, which I thought would not only be a good nod to their similar development origins, but also fit the idea of being hurt by hazardous chemicals. VOX. Looking at its stats, the Coagulator's primary fire deals 20 to 60 damage depending on the distance from the explosion, which has an AoE radius of 2 meters. The projectile moves at 25 meters per second, fires one shot every 0.8 seconds, and has 8 total ammo, with a reload time of 2 seconds. These stats are largely based in relation to Zarya and Baptiste's alternate fires, which are both arcing splash projectiles. The purpose of this primary fire is primarily to be that of area denial, as its moderate splash damage and reasonable ammo capacity allow VOX to forcefully control areas in the same way as Junkrat's frag launcher. Moving now to VOX's alternate fire, this is where he gets a little bit more range. Much like Mei's alternate fire, he can charge his chemical coagulator to produce a much more dense mass of toxins, which can be fired over longer distances. Unlike Mei, however, this charged shot travels in an arc, like Torbjorn's rivet gun, thus making it a bit more difficult to actually land at long range. This charged shot deals 70 damage and travels at a speed of 60 meters per second. It takes 0.4 seconds to charge the shot, which is then followed by a 0.8 second recovery. Each alt shot also consumes 2 ammo instead of 1, meaning that it can be used 4 times per reload instead of 8. The purpose behind this alternate fire is to give VOX a bit of viability at longer distances, but to still keep his sweet spot at medium range, where he can effectively bombard the enemy with his primary fire. Looking now at his activated abilities, his first one is Hazard Gas. VOX throws a grenade which detonates into a cloud of deadly neurotoxins. This gas deals damage to all enemy players, barriers, and buildings within its AoE for its duration. The Hazard Gas grenade is thrown in the same way as Ash's dynamite, in that it will bounce off walls and enemy barriers, and only detonate after coming to rest on the ground. Once it hits the ground, there's a 1-second delay before it produces the toxic cloud, so as to give enemies a chance to escape its area of effect. But unlike dynamite, the gas cloud continues to deal damage over the duration of its existence, meaning that if an enemy moves into the cloud after it's already detonated, they'll still take damage from it. Likewise, enemies within the cloud will immediately stop taking damage upon leaving the area. The toxic cloud has an identical shape to Winston's projected barrier, in that it creates a sphere of gas around the grenade itself, which can pass through terrain and enemy barriers. The cloud itself is mostly transparent so as to not block vision for either team, but is still clearly noticeable on the battlefield. Hazard Gas deals 40 DPS for a duration of 5 seconds, thus meaning it'll deal 200 damage to any target which remains within its area of effect for the full duration. The AoE itself is 3 meters in radius, thus making it significantly smaller than Winston's barrier, but still big enough to zone out enemies. It has a 10-second cooldown, which begins as soon as he throws out the grenade. Hazard Gas is VOX's primary team tanking ability and functions purely as area denial. While it's possible to get kills with it, it'll more often than not be used to force enemies to reposition. By creating a hazardous zone, he can temporarily lock down certain routes so that the enemy can still physically move through that area, but they will suffer damage from attempting to do so. It's a lot like a small-scaled version of Wrecking Ball's Minefield. Moving on though, VOX's second ability is Adrenal Vapor. When taking damage, he can vent specialized chemicals into his hazmat suit's oxygen supply to grant himself temporary bonus health, as well as a speed and jump height boost based on how little health he has at the time of activation. This serves as both an escape/survival tool when under fire, as well as a method of reaching high ground for advantageous positioning. In a lot of ways, it's like Torbjorn's Overload ability, but with the dynamic aspect of Wrecking Ball's adaptive shield. The buff increases his movement by plus 20%, thus giving him the same speed as Lucio's speed boost aura, and sets his jump height to 6.5 meters, which is roughly the same height as Doomfist's rising uppercut. Both the speed and jump buffs are static and don't change relative to how much damage VOX has taken. The dynamic components of Adrenal Vapor are the bonus health he gets from it, as well as its duration. At its base, the ability grants plus 50 bonus health, which stacks on top of his existing health in the same way as bonus armor and shields, and lasts for 3 seconds. However, for every 100 HP missing upon activation, VOX gains an additional plus 50 health, and the ability lasts 1.5 seconds longer. I made a chart to show what his exact bonuses are for each given tier. The max amount he can gain is plus 200 health with a 7.5 second duration when the ability is activated at 100 HP or below. Keep Keep in mind, the numbers in the left column only account for VOX's own base HP. If he has temporary armor or shields from allies when the ability activates, those will be ignored when calculating the bonus he gets. Also, to clarify, the ability duration is also the duration for which he has the speed and jump height boosts, even though their numbers are static. Furthermore, it has a cooldown of 15 seconds, which starts as soon as the ability is activated, and a cast time of 1 second. This adds to the strategy of deciding when to use it, as waiting too long to try and go for the full bonus could result in you dying before even gaining its benefits. Adrenal Vapor is designed to be a versatile ability which offers short bursts of personal sustain in much the same way as Roadhog's Take a Breather. I originally toyed around with the ability being a passive that automatically applied when you lost a certain amount of health, but I think forcing the player to activate it manually makes it more engaging. Not only does it add more room for strategy, but also gives the player options to utilize it in different ways, such as repositioning to high ground prior to a fight, or getting back to the fight quicker after respawning. Overall, it gives VOX some extra sustain, which helps to offset his relatively low health pool and big hitbox. Getting onto his ultimate now, he has Quarantine. VOX deploys a barrier-like containment dome which blocks both enemy fire and movement to be used either offensively as a way of trapping the enemy, or defensively as a temporary super shield to protect your team. Like Zarya's Graviton Surge, it'll stick to whatever map terrain it first touches, including walls and ceilings, and immediately deploys a 5-meter radius sphere akin to Winston's projected barrier. With regards to the physics of the barrier, it's like a Mei ice wall, only that it's spherical, transparent, and doesn't physically exist for your own team. This means that abilities which normally bypass barriers, such as Fire Strike, will be stopped by it if they're being used by the enemy. Additionally, unlike Graviton, Quarantine does not disable movement abilities for those trapped in it. Therefore, heroes like Tracer and Sombra can recall or translocate back in or out, but Reaper and Moira cannot Wraith form or fade through it. Additionally, given that the dome has a 5-meter radius with which trapped enemies are free to move about, players should find plenty of options to counter it regardless of which side they're stuck on. Tanks inside can still use their barriers to offer cover, or quick heroes could dodge about to stay alive. Quarantine has 2500 health and lasts for 5 seconds. This should make it fairly impactful without being uncounterable, as it can be destroyed in certain situations, but most of the time will have to be waited out. Like much of the rest of his kit, the ultimate is designed for area denial. Even if you don't trap enemies within it, the dome's presence in and of itself serves as an obstacle and distraction which can aid in dictating the flow of the fight. However, trapping enemies is optimal as the small space synergizes heavily with VOX's other AoE attacks and abilities. Comboing Quarantine with Hazard Gas could be used to great effect, especially while bombarding the area with his chemical coagulator. Overall, VOX is a unique new kind of off-tank which sacrifices damage negation for extensive zoning tools. He's definitely a hero who would work best when utilizing the protection of a barrier main tank on his team, as Adrenal Vapor only offers limited self-sustain, and that sustain cannot be shared with his team. As always, the numbers I presented in this video for his abilities would all be highly subject to change if Blizzard ever were to try developing him, since it's impossible to perfectly pin down balance without effective prototype testing. I may even try to build VOX in the workshop at some point as well to see if I can test him out, though to be honest, it's really not as good of a hero design tool as many people seem to think it is. The workshop is great for building game modes, but not so much for building new heroes and abilities, so I'll have to see what I can come up with. Anyways, let me know your thoughts about my VOX hero concept by leaving a comment down below. You can also watch my other concepts for heroes such as Sanjay and the Junker Queen by checking out the cards on screen and description down below. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video and share it with a friend if you really liked it. Subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and hit up the bell to never miss any of my future Overwatch content. This is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.